Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Mike Prince Show. I am your host, the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince, coming to you each and every day right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Of course, we feature our beloved HBCU, but more in particular that of Prairie View A&M University. Today would be no exception to the rule. But before we get into that, I want to remind you that you can follow me on Twitter at Radio Guy. Instagram is Radio Guy 22. And, of course, the website is obnradio.com. And if you happen to be in the Prairie View city limits, you can always reach us at 87.9 FM. And without any further ado, let us jump right into today's episode. Our guest today needs no introduction. If you're remotely close and keeping up with anything going on throughout the world of Prairie View, not only in the athletic realm, but in the overall structure in the direction of the university. Some may tremble when you hear the name, others may faint, and others may perk their ears up just to hear and see for yourself what's going on. I am gladly proud to introduce to some and present the others the class of 1971, none other than Mr. Lonnie Davis. How you doing, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you for the willingness to come on and be a part of it. A lot of people have a tendency to have their thoughts, visions on who they are and who they think other people are. We keep an open eye and an open ear here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network and the Mike Prince Show in particular to make sure that we allow those who desire to be a part and get a chance to let the people judge for themselves who they are. And that's why we are today right now. And if you don't mind, sir, how about giving a brief description and introductory about who Lonnie Davis is?
Well, I'm a native of East Texas. I grew up in a small rural town of Hemp Hill, Texas, where I attended elementary, middle, and high school. And I always say that I am the proud graduate of that segregated situation, and am overjoyed that I was born at a time that I was able to miss the integrated school situation. I attended Prairie View, where I earned a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering with a mathematics minor. And I'm also a licensed attorney in the state of Texas.
A licensed attorney in the state of Texas. Well, that would explain the flow of some of your documentary that I've had the pleasure of reading. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, you have not just arrived on the scene. You've been a long time supporter and ambassador, and even to some a critic of Prairie View as a whole. And one thing I can say, you've been consistent and balanced from day one.
Yeah, well, that's correct, except that I would just say that my loyalty to Prairie View has been unwavering. My loyalty to administrations of Prairie View depends on whether or not they have shown that they are worthy of my loyalty. So that has been my critiques of administrations, not of Prairie View A&M University itself.
Okay, well, I'm glad that we're getting some of this aired out because, you know, when I spoke with you about you coming on to the show, one of the things that I was particularly interested in, a lot of times people can read letters, read words, and without hearing the person's passion, without hearing their rhyme or reason, and you could read papers, texts, letters, and assume a whole bunch of things without hearing that person's tone and expressions as they speak their own words.
You're absolutely right.
And with that being said, let's just dive straight into this thing. You're on record for not being totally satisfied with the direction that the athletic department and some administrative moves that have done. Now, we're free to talk about whatever you want to talk about, but for the most part, I address things from the athletic issue, and here's why I do that. Because athletics really sets the stage and the momentum for the rest of the university. If you have successful competitive programs, it equals student growth. It's been proven.
I certainly would agree with you on that point. Unfortunately, we have had one administration after another who does not appear to have come to that same conclusion, and that's part of the problem. Basically, the athletic programs, sports within the athletic program, or basically the face and the voice of the university. That's how most people get their acquaintance with a university, is through the sports program. It's kind of the greatest free advertisement in the world for the university, and it can either be positive or negative depending on the success of your athletic program.
Absolutely. I'm on record for saying that the three key people at a university level are your president, your athletic director, and your head football coach, if you have a football program. If not, then, of course, basketball. And with those three people, people are going to predetermine and prejudge who you are as an institution before they even step foot on your campus.
That's absolutely right. And I think that over the years you have seen how some of the negative aspects of our athletic program has had a detrimental effect on the entire university. We've gone through these long periods of losing and in our football program, and not only our football program, but our basketball programs, men and women as well. And all that did was send out just an abundance of negative publicity about what Prairie View A&M University is all about, and the entire university has suffered as a result of that.
Well, it's ironic that you brought up the history. And I don't want to open up an old wound, but you just reminded me of a old player who once upon a time was going to be daunting all his purple and gold, and they say the big fish that got away. And when I say this name, I hope you're sitting down. J.J. Montgomery.
My goodness. That's interesting.
Did they catch you off guard? Did they catch you off guard a little bit, sir?
It did. It really did. That's surprising. I'm surprised that you even know about that. As you obviously know, I was involved with trying to get JJ to come to Prairie View. That was at the time when Jerome Francis was the men's head basketball coach. And Coach Francis was very interested in having JJ become a Prairie View Panther, and we brought him down to some games. Angelina College in Lufkin, Texas. He's a native of Lufkin. And Coach Francis would come up to Lufkin to watch JJ play, and he was just an extraordinary basketball player. And we worked diligently around the clock with JJ, with his family. I was friends with his dad, who was himself a Panther and was a football player at Prairie View. And he wanted JJ to come to Prairie View. And so we worked on that diligently, but unfortunately, JJ's girlfriend and JJ's dad were not the best of friends, and she wanted to get JJ as far away from his dad as she could, and she carried the day in terms of his choice of where to go to school.
Wow. Well, did he marry her?
He did. As a matter of fact, he did. And he, after he went to, I think it was Central Arkansas University, and graduated and went overseas. He played overseas. I think he started having health issues, and I believe has since retired. But he played all over Europe. Played in Egypt, played in Japan, and he was a kind of a world traveler on the overseas basketball circuit. And I believe at this point he has finally hung up his sneakers and is doing something else. But he had a successful career.
Well, I'm glad I was able to take you down memory lane just for a little
You
bit.
sure did, surprisingly.
You never know what happens when you get on the Mike Prince show. We do our due diligence on this end, sir, to try to make sure.
Sure did.
It is the pure joy of what I do. I love being able to tap into people and get their true expressions on things. Now, speaking of true expressions, I call them little manifestos. They're beautifully written. Sometimes people will say they're harsh, but they're to the point. And sometimes what I'm learning is that the truth sometimes just hurts. It absolutely hurts.
So true.
You have your latest, I guess, letter was from May 11th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. To the athletic department, to
Okay.
Mr. Ashley Robinson in particular, was dated May 11th.
Okay. Now, what I would like to do, if we could kind of walk through that, even though Ashley Robinson is no longer there were some things that I noticed within the letter that maybe I need some eye-opening to, or maybe I can possibly try to shed a little light on. I'm not claiming to be an aficionado of the athletic department, but I do keep my finger on the pulse. And if we don't mind, let's just walk our dog and go through this.
Okay, sure.
Now, you at the time, May 11th is what you put that out. It was just on the brink of softball winning the SWAC championship. So technically, it would have been 3 championships rather than the 2. And
that's right.
Right. So we got that. And the thing that kind of stood out to me was there was a reference of Alabama State, who had won 7 championships. And then there was another reference of the championships of significance, which I do agree with, or football and men's basketball. And however, that's not been the case for Alabama State. They have failed tremendously in football, considering the money that they've spent, and they've done just as bad in basketball. So
that's right.
With the clarity on that, and I do understand, we hire coaches to win. Okay,
that's right.
Students come to graduate. Coaches are hired to motivate and win games. And if you're not producing, it's time to exit stage left and get the next person in.
I fully agree.
Okay. The next one is one that kind of stood out to me because I'm a former baseball player. Mm-hmm. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you referenced to the letter that Riggins got a 4-year extension.
Correct.
Now,
well, I believe he got a 2-year extension, which brought him back up to 4 years. I think he was 2 years into his contract with 2 years unexpired, and the extension was for an additional 2 years, which brought him back to a 4-year term on his contract.
Okay, from my understanding, and that's why I love being able to dialogue with people. From my understanding, he had a 4-year deal. He had completed 3, and he was granted the final year of his 4th year contract. Even though it was at a 27% winning percentage, he was granted that 1 additional year. And my reference to PV Nation, whether we agree to disagree with that move at the time, at that point, the decision had been made. And what we could try to do is buckle up, weather the storm, and plan ahead. And that's where the 4-year, because I'm like you, if there had been a 4-year extension, there would have possibly been some furniture being rearranged.
Okay.
Okay,
I see.
And then with the, the basketball. Now, you are a basketball guy. I know that because of the J.J. Montgomerys. Yeah. Now, you would probably understand and even agree to a point that our basketball situation is unique because it is looked upon as a way of, i.e., fundraising. which puts us, I say, in harm's way of playing these guaranteed money games.
Right. Well, I really have a problem with that, Mike.
Okay.
What we gain in terms of finances from those guarantee games, we lose in terms of negative publicity that's spread across my inbox every morning after one of those games. And every time I see one of my Caucasian colleagues, I'm having to hear about what happened to your Panthers in that game against Oklahoma, against University of Houston, man, they just blew them out of the gymnasium. So, you're sacrificing all of that negative publicity for those few coins. And the point is that there doesn't seem to be a real significant effort to win those games. Now, when, as we mentioned a moment ago, when Jerome Francis was there, Jerome Francis fully expected to win those games. And right out of the chute, his first game was against the University of Houston and won that game against U of H. And it was clear that it was going to be a new day under the Jerome Francis men's basketball program. And at that point, the Baby Dome has never seen such attendance as it did during the first year of Jerome Francis. There were charter buses coming from Dallas and Houston and Beaumont, and that gym was rocking all the way up to the rafters. And so I'm saying that if you're going to take those guarantee games, win them, or at least be competitive. But, I'm not much for being competitive. I expect victories. And these, for instance, other schools, other FCS schools take those guarantee games, and they win them. In particular, McNeese State over in Lake Charles, I believe they're located. When they book those guarantee games in football, they quite frequently win those games, to the surprise of the FBS schools that they're playing against. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, sure, take the money, but win the game, or at least don't embarrass us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you, in the infamous words, we play to win the games.
That's correct. As you said earlier, we play to win the game.
Yes, sir. We play to win the games. We're speaking right now with Lonnie Davis, PV graduate, passionate PV graduate. To some, may seem a bit harsh, but the man speaks from his heart, says what he means, and means what he says. We're all here at the Mike Prince Show. Brother Lonnie, and I hope you don't mind me calling you Brother Lonnie because you are part of the Panther family.
No. Right.
Here is where the rubber meets the road. For whatever reason, we don't like to address the elephant in the room. If something is wrong, you need to fix it.
Correct.
If you expect to advance further.
Correct.
You just made mention, if we're going to take the guarantee games, then at least go be competitive, not embarrassing, and win the games. I buy
Correct.
that. And one more thing for the record. Now that we got that basketball, I'm just going to see if you're going to give them a little credit here, Brother Lonnie. Just a little credit. They did go 12-6 in conference play, men and women.
They did. They did. They did. But unfortunately, I'll just give you my thoughts on that. Back during the era of legal segregation, where we were competing, black schools against black schools, HBCUs against HBCUs, where the best and the brightest student athletes and were at Prairie View and at these other HBCUs. That had a great deal more significance then than it does now, in my opinion. Now we have to compete in the marketplace of everybody. We have to compete against these kids from every university in the world. And if we can't compete in athletics, we can't compete in academics either.
Point very well taken. Point very well taken. Now, what's the remedy to that?
Well, the remedy is that we suffer from a situation whereby we are governed by, or I should say rather, we're dominated and controlled by the Texas A&M University system, which has no interest in the progress or prosperity of Prairie View A&M University or African Americans in general. And that's the failing. And as a result, it gets to determine who is going to be president of Prairie View A&M University. And for the last 20 years, whereby I have paid close attention to this, we end up with a president that is inappropriate for the circumstances. Going back to Charles Hines, an Army general, and I have yet to be able to figure out how that's related to successfully leading an HBCU such as Prairie View A&M University. And after that, had no prior experience as president of a university, followed by George Wright, who basically was a history professor and had no prior experience leading an institution of higher learning. And now we're at a point where we have a president that does, in fact, have experience leading an institution of higher learning, but not of the type as Prairie View. It's a whole different kettle of fish to be able to educate and graduate high-achieving students at a rich private institution compared to trying to educate and graduate basically underprepared and low-income students at Prairie View A&M University. And you see the situation where we're dealing with an 11% on-time graduation rate, which is just astonishing. If a corporation was producing at that level of efficiency, of course it would be out of business. So we've got that situation, and here's the terrible thing about it. There is no serious effort to do any better. If you look at now, you probably will be surprised at what I'm about to say. But now, Ashley's expertise was in compliance, educating and graduating student athletes. Now, he was truly good at that. He had that aspect of the job down pat.
So I just fainted for a moment. I'm collecting myself here.
And
Go
I
ahead.
told him that he was not qualified to be athletic director, but certainly he was certainly qualified to be compliance director. If you look at the graduation rate of student athletes from the athletic program at Prairie View, it dwarfs the graduation rate of the general student body. So why is that? The reason is because there is a requirement that they graduate or not play. There are standards in place by the NCAA that requires that they graduate these students, a certain number of students, on time. Now, why not impose those same standards campus-wide, which I have recommended on numerous previous occasions. there are no consequences for not educating and graduating the general student body. And that's the problem. They're not trying.
Now, if you allow me to play devil's advocate,
Okay.
Dr. Simmons, who I've yet to meet personally, but I'm just going based on the resume, maybe she was brought in to introduce a new way of doing things for those underachievers. Could that be a thought?
Well, that could be a thought, but it would be a bad thought. You first have to have some acquaintance with methods and techniques for doing that. And her last employment was at Brown University up in Rhode Island, which is one of the Ivy League institutions, one of the prestigious Ivy League institutions. She would not have picked up on that type of experience at Brown University. Prior to that, she was at Smith College, which is a high-achieving institution for women, I think in Boston, I believe. And you would not have garnered the types of techniques and methods for educating the types of students that are at Prairie View from leading Smith College. So where would she have learned how to educate and graduate the students that attend Prairie View?
Once again, playing devil's advocate.
Sure.
I think she's a graduate of Wheatley High School.
Correct.
And down in Houston area. And
Correct.
coming through those ranks, perhaps she was able to have enough grit to get to those next levels. And maybe I'm just, like I said, I'm thinking outside the box. And maybe she could get the opportunity to forward that to those who come up in maybe some similar conditions that she was accustomed to and has acquired a new taste.
Well, of course, like you say, she did. She is a Wheatley graduate. She's also a graduate of an HBCU, Dillard University over in New Orleans. So she has that. But, I look back to my high school days, and I can't remember a great deal about exactly what took place then, and that was pretty early on in her development. But for the last 20 years of her career, she had no exposure to anything that has to do, well, I shouldn't say anything, to most of the things that have to do with successfully running Prairie View A&M University.
Okay, and that is, as I say, a point well taken, and I respect the views and the visions of that. So my question go ahead.
If I might add, Mike, and two, I have to look at what she has said. She has said in interviews prior to becoming the permanent president of Prairie View A&M University that she is too old and tired to be permanent president of a university.
Yes, and I
know take her at her word.
And once again, I'm playing devil's advocate.
Sure.
What about if people get a second wind and just change their mind and say, I think I want to do this?
Well, I'm basically the same age as she is, and in my earlier years, before I embarked upon the career that I'm engaged in now, I started, built, and ran an engineering and construction company catering to the petrochemical and petroleum industries down in Galveston County, up on the Houston Ship Channel, and down in Brazoria County. Grew it into the largest industrial black-owned company in America. Okay, that was when I was very young and very energetic. It required 12 to 14 hours days, 6 and 7 days a week to have achieved that. There is no circumstances under which I could do that today.
I understand that. I agree with that. I agree with that.
And the same thing for Dr. Simmons. I mean, the things that she was able to do at Smith and Brown, and I think she spent some time at Spelman as provost. That was when she had and basically what she's saying, when you're young and you got the energy, you can do certain things. But there's a reason that there are all of these mandatory age requirements for retirement, and pretty clearly she had chosen 5 years earlier to having been called out of retirement to retire. She'd had enough. And and then after being in retirement for 5 years, she says that I'm too old and too tired to be permanent president of a university. Now, if you are a legitimate governing body of a university and you're looking for the president of an institution, would a candidate that had made such a statement be a candidate that you would hire for that position?
You're asking me that question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, I would have to agree and say probably not in my upper echelon of picks.
Right. During my earlier years, I've been self-employed almost my entire adult life, and I have hired hundreds of people of all categories, all the way from laborers up to vice presidents of my companies. And I can tell you right now, if somebody had told me that they were too old or too tired to fill a position that I had a vacancy in, I would have said, okay, fine, I agree with you if that's your position. Now, after she makes that statement publicly on the record in the media, she then turns around and requests to be permanent president of the university. It makes no sense. And here's the other thing. The traditional way that process takes place is that whenever a vacancy occurs for president of Prairie View A&M University and any other university in the Texas A&M University system, that the job is posted as being vacant. The next thing that occurs is the chancellor forms a search and selection committee to consider applicants to fill that position. Okay? That didn't happen. There was a deviation from the standard practice of a search and selection committee in order to fill the vacancy left by the resignation of George Wright. Now, I don't recall that having ever occurred before, and if you would look at the system's record, every time there has been a vacancy of any of the 11 institutions in the system, a search and selection committee is formed, comprised of stakeholders from within and without the university involved. And then it's narrowed down to 3 finalists, which the chancellor then presents to the board for a final determination. None of that happened in this instance. This was all a very shady and a very shaky process for putting a lady in the presidency at Prairie View who had said that she's too old and too tired to be there.
Well, you're making some very valid and concise points, at least from my vantage point. My next question, have you even, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, have you reached out to express your concerns to the A&M system and to the University of Prairie View itself?
I have. As you probably know, people don't have a problem with not hearing from me. They have a problem with hearing from me too much.
Yes, sir. I would stand on the record for that one. Yes, sir. So here's the point, or I guess the point, we have an athletic director's position open now.
Yes.
Do you have a particular name or two who you would like to see a serious candidate for this vacancy?
I don't at the moment, and I'll tell you why. I spent so much time looking at potential head football coach candidates, and only to discover that it does not matter. There is no respect for the opinion of the alumni. It was unprecedented, the amount of input that came in from the alumni with respect to filling the head football coach position left by the resignation of Coach Willie Simmons. And it made no difference. I mean, the choice had been made of hiring Eric Dooley before the process even started, and that's what ended up happening. And that's what always ends up happening. So, I've just been, it's just an exercise in futility to spend your time and energy researching potential candidates that will not be paid any attention to. So, no, I haven't done anything. I will probably be talked into taking a look to see who some potential candidates are, but I'm not encouraged by past history that would be something that would be worthwhile.
And I hear you loud and clear on that, sir, which is one of the reasons why we do this show. Even when it seems that you're not being heard, just keep on talking. Keep on doing what you do.
Well said, Mike. Well said.
Because I am a true believer in the slogan that was embedded in me as a student that I regurgitate to those students now, that Prairie View does produce productive people. I believe that to my very core. I can hear and feel your passion for Prairie View, just as you can hear and feel my passion for Prairie View.
Absolutely.
And Prairie View is one of those universities, and I'm pretty sure everybody can relate to this, of their respective universities. Either you're going to love it or hate it. And
that's
because we both love it, we all love it. And I know that, it might sound like a kumbaya moment, and that's not reality. But for the sake of us moving forward as a body, I believe that the university should take at least a page out of what we alumni have to say, and don't take it as a personal attack. One thing that I found out, that in these high positions, along with the good pay, comes a good voice of praise and a good voice of criticism. And that's part of the package. And
absolutely,
we cannot have our sleeves on, our feelings on our sleeves.
That's right.
Developed a technique and a theory that I've used. I've learned this probably 15, 20 years ago. And I'm pretty sure, of man of your caliber and your status, you may have heard of the Q-tip theory. Have you ever heard of the Q-tip theory, sir?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, let me just ask you this. You have used a Q-tip, I imagine, in your lifetime, correct?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure that on occasion, not often, that when you use this Q-tip, you pull something out of your body that you have to examine and be in awe that came out of your body.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. You study it, you discard it, and you move on with your life, correct?
Correct.
Now, I'm pretty sure you've had some good days, some bad days, some up and some downs, but have you ever been so low that you had to go back to the trash can and reuse an old Q-tip?
No, I can't say that I have.
You've been a blessed man, right? Well,
absolutely.
The next question is, you spell Q-tip Q-T-I-P, correct?
Correct.
That simply stands for quit taking it personal. Treat things as a Q-tip. If it hits you on today, say ouch, rub the wound, ice it down, move on to the next journey. If it misses you, go, whew, that one missed me today, but be prepared for the next one, because sooner or later you're going to get hit in the role of leadership.
Oh, no question.
And
no question about it.
We can't take all praises when things are good, and you can't take it personal when things are bad.
That's right.
So
that's exactly right.
I encourage all PV Nation, whether you're a fan or a supporter, and I have my theory on that. Fans are the ones that sit on the side and cheer, but supporters, they cheer and support with their financial donation. And with all that being said, we can, and I believe, and maybe I'm just a simple dum-dum, but I believe if we keep banging loud enough, we can make a difference, Brother Lonnie.
Right. As you know, if criticism was enough to silence me, I would have been quiet a long time ago.
Hear, sir. Hear.
So it comes with, as you said, it comes with the territory. If you're going to enter the arena and have a position and speak truth to power, there are people who some equate that as being disloyal. But dissent is not disloyalty. In fact, dissent, criticism, protest, if you study history, are essential for progress. Had Dr. King not dissented and criticized the way the government was functioning and the laws of this country, where would we be? So it's absolutely essential. Authority has to be questioned. They always have a number of agendas going at one time, and quite frequently, those agendas are not in the best interest of the people. And so they have to be exposed and critiqued and expected to be listened to. Now the problem is that it's not a new situation whereby there just is no respect from the administration, and not just this administration, the previous administrations as well. There's just no respect for the alumni. And to my astonishment, during the previous administration, the immediately preceding administration, the Texas A&M University system got the National Alumni Association to enter into what's called an affiliation agreement. And basically, the gist of that agreement is that you will become a fundraising arm of the university, and that is the sole extent of your involvement with the university. And basically, you will not criticize the administration and so forth and so on. Now, that was just amazing to me that that a Prairie View graduate, as president of the National Alumni Association, would sign such an agreement. And true to form, that is precisely how the National Alumni Association conducts its business. You will notice that they never take a position on anything. They never criticize anything. They never protest anything. And they never have an opinion about anything that needs improvement.
Now, I'm going to have to research on that one. I know it was proposed that that Texas A&M tried to get it, and the last that I was informed on, that's been a resistance, and there's been a refusal to sign that. Are you telling me that this has just recently happened?
No, sir. That happened. I was trying to remember the president prior to the current president.
The president prior to was
prior to Kim Runnels.
Kim was brother from Atlanta.
From Atlanta, I can't remember his name. His signature
Carl Young.
Carl Young. His signature is on the document. I have the document.
Wow. That's news to me. You
That's a
never
fact.
can tell what's going to happen.
That's right. I'll email it to you when we're done.
Okay, that is refreshing. So the document clearly states that the national alumni cannot criticize, nor question.
Right. Basically, they have a single role to raise money, and every word out of their mouth is about raise money for this, money for that, money for this, money for that, and notices of this, notices of that. You don't hear anything else from the National Alumni Association.
Well, I might be a member. They say out of order.
Well, I'm a life member as well.
Yes, sir.
I'm a life member of the National Alumni Association as well, and I've raised these issues with the leadership of the Alumni Association, and all I get back is silence.
Well, in this case, silence is not gold, and if we are in that situation, at least explain to the people how we got there, and let's try to regroup from that point on.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, sir, you have definitely been a breath of fresh air, at least for me, and I'm sure
Well, thank you.
people who appreciate what we do here on a daily basis. I have a custom that I always try to give my guests final thoughts and comments that you would like to share with the listening audience. And right now, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Mike. Basically, I would just say that there are those who would question my motivation or want to know what my motivation is, and it is simply this: that I intend to do all that I can do to leave Prairie View A&M University in a better condition than it was in when I attended it back in the 1960s. It was a place that transformed a country boy like myself, transformed my life, and set me on a path that has served me well throughout my career. And it was at a time, a different time from now, during the period of legal segregation, of course, when, in my opinion, the best and brightest professors in the state of Texas were professors at Prairie View A&M University. The best student athletes in the state of Texas were at Prairie View A&M University. Prairie View was host of the Prairie View Interscholastic League. It was the center of the universe for African Americans in the state of Texas. Prairie View was a national competitor at the time. It was not these guarantee games where you go out and you lose spectacularly and stink up the place. They were just coming off of a national championship in men's basketball, and were runner-up in football. They lost to St. John's in the championship game. I believe that was '63. So it was a time when your chest would just swell with pride. There was nothing that I had to complain about. I mean, I'm interacting with some brilliant black students. I'm being mentored by some extraordinary black professors. Everything that Prairie View is doing is appealing and prideful for me, and something that I could proudly boast about. That all started to change with the end of legal segregation. The best and brightest professors started to leave Prairie View and go on to other opportunities. Traditionally white universities started gathering up and aggressively recruiting and signing black student athletes. And so it's a whole different situation after the end of legal segregation. And to my opinion, the university has never transitioned from the time when it did not have to actively compete for the best and brightest talent to the time when they do have to compete. And so that's what I'm pushing for. I want to see Prairie View exceed what it was when I was a student at Prairie View. It's just that simple.
So in summary, let's move to the new millennium with the drive and determination of what got us here.
That's right. That's right.
My brother, please promise me that this won't be the last time that we get a chance to chat.
Oh, no, I've enjoyed it, Mike. As I said, let me reiterate, thank you again for the invitation to be on your program. As you know, I'm a fan of your program.
Well, I appreciate that very much, very much. Yeah. And continue to be a fan, sir. And
I will be.
Asking those who would like to be a part of the open mic journey and experience, you can follow me on Twitter at Radio Guy. Instagram is Radio Guy 22. The website is obnradio.com. In the Prairie View community, we're on 87.9 FM. And, of course, if you're traveling about, you can simply dial 605-477-5066, and you will never miss any programming that's going on right here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. He is Brother Lonnie Davis, class of 1971. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince, class of 93. Got me by a few, but I'm still a graduate. Until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.